Dearest viewers, today I present to you my dinner party at the Featheringtons, inspired floral arch table decor, perfectly blooming for this season's intimate dinner parties. In all reality, guys, we are here and making this incredible over-the-top Featherington-inspired table decor, which will later get turned into this tablescape in the part 2 video. This video is strictly focusing on the floral because it's intense. For those of you who maybe need a refresher on Bridgerton, there is a interesting family called the Featheringtons, which have lots and lots of bright yellows and pinks and greens in their family colors that the girls are always dressed in. But my favorite is Penelope, who always seems to have the brightest and most boldest of the looks, and that's where I'm at on a regular basis usually. So I love and identify with her style, and so the Featheringtons are the inspiration for this table decor. And with everybody having smaller gatherings at home but still big gatherings in the sense of the momentous occasions that they are, you need to be able to make that momentous occasion stand out just like you would in a ballroom. So I am showing you how you can create really incredible table looks at home. So we're gonna get right into it. I opted to go and be that person and have the backdrop already put up because I thought the backdrop was necessary in my space. It just kind of added to the overwhelming amount of color that I was going for. And don't worry, all the links are down below and recommendations on where you can get things. I also have many tutorials on this table arch. If you don't know how to make one, it's super easy, and I'll make sure those links are provided in the cards and down below. I use this all the time because I want big centerpieces that don't take up space on the table. And as a renter, I can't suspend things from the ceiling, so this is me working with what I've got. Now, this whole project requires one piece of foam, which I just zip tied in its full plastic capacity up on top of the arch. Super easy. If you don't have long enough zip ties, don't worry, just add a couple of them together to make the link long enough that you need. And then I am continuing to use up the roll of plastic chicken wire with the help of my husband getting it on there because it was just a little windy. But I love this stuff. I used it for my other Bridgerton inspired reading nook area, which, oh my god, that was wisteria, you guys. I love it so much. Anyways, I have the roll on hand, so mine is a little bit extra in the sense of like how much on the width wise you needed, which mine was about 2 feet. So if you're ordering this yourself, depending on how full and large you want your arrangement to be, you could probably get away with like a foot width, in the sense of like how wide, not how long, how wide the chicken wire made of plastic needs to be. Now I am just using the excess essentially chicken wire that I don't need and just overlapping it for extra support instead of cutting it, because I figured I'd rather have extra support in there, and then just zip tying it. And everything here is sped up because this is a long project. It took me a couple days to finish the whole thing because, well, we'll get to that later, but it's a big thing and you could knock it out in a day, but I wasn't able to. So the corners are really easy, but I would always recommend working on the center part first and then working your way out to the corner, so that way if you need to make any adjustments, it's easier. And so that's what you see me doing here. And you might be wondering why I put the foam only on that right side. And if you go back and you look at the original look, the right side on the top has a much higher floral arrangement, whereas the left side on the bottom part of the arrangement has those beautiful lanterns, and it's because we're kind of creating like a curvy S shape, and so this is what's going to help give that support, that foam there. So same thing on the sides, we're just folding them around. Don't worry, it does not have to be perfect. If you do your job right, you shouldn't be able to see any of this chicken wire in the end, so don't worry if it's perfectly lined up or it's too bulky in one spot. If you're putting enough floral and foliage in, you won't even know it. Now, what I really like about working with this chicken wire, which I keep calling chicken wire, but it's chicken plastic wire, chicken wire made out of plastic, whatever. You guys know what I'm talking about at this point, is it's not sharp like the actual real chicken wire made out of metal, and so it doesn't snag on everything. Your hands aren't all cut up and jacked up. It still has really good support and form for what we're doing, especially with the silk flowers. And I'm going to be able to reuse it a whole bunch, and I can cut it with scissors. I don't have to have any fancy pliers. And you will see that the right side and the left side have different lengths on the pole, and that's because, like I said earlier, we're making that big S kind of curvy shape, and so that's what's going to help support that and make sure we have enough foliage hanging to create that full look. Now, because I'm trying to keep this balanced, I wanted the lanterns to hang about the same dimensions as the foliage on the right side is going to be. Now, I did sit down there, and that is to make sure that the lanterns are not hanging too low to obstruct line of sight between you and whoever else is joining you for dinner or lunch or brunch or whatever you're doing. I mean, let's be honest, this would make an incredible buffet setup, especially, and then you only have to do half of it. You only do the one side, but I did both sides. So in regards to the greenery, I am currently obsessed with all of the Shop Wild Things greenery. It's such a good quality, and it's very full, and I think it's worth it to spend an extra little bit and get the really good stuff, because the greenery is the foundation of any floral. Because if you put your greenery in first, whether it's this floral arch or a simple centerpiece or just a hurricane vase with a candle in it and some flowers on the outside, having good foliage helps make your premium flowers that you might be spending more on pop that much more. So just think that that's a lot. That's a lot right there. But take it in, think about that in the future. And that's why you'll see a lot of florists add their greenery first. Even if it's not its final spot or anything, they put the greenery in, so that way they have a good basis for their fancier flowers to pop and stand out against. Now, I will, of course, link all of the specific ones that I got from Shop Wild Things down below, but whether you get it from them or from wherever else, my big focus was keeping in mind the Featheringtons are usually a very bright and intense styling fabric choices. Regardless of that, in nature there are lots of textures even on the same tree. There are lots of colors even on the same tree. The leaves on the outside are going to have lighter pigments than the leaves on the inside because they're getting a different amount of sunlight. So creating lots of dimension that way with even just the subtle changes in greenery is going to make your look that much cooler and interesting and appealing to the eye. And I think it's those little details that add up. Now, when you're seeing me do this and you're probably like, oh my god, what are you doing? Think of it the same way you look at an acrylic or oil painting at the beginning. You're putting your foundation in and it doesn't look like much, and you're probably like, oh, this doesn't look good. It's okay. This is how it starts. So because of the piece that I'm doing is double-sided, and if yours is the same, I encourage you to keep this in mind too. You need to work on both sides at the same time. For the sake of this video, because it's already like crazy long as it is, even in the abridged and fast forwarded speeds, I'm taking out most of me working on the back side. But I just want to take this opportunity to remind you guys, work on both sides. It's an extra couple steps going back and forth, but it'll help keep everything balanced. And I think it makes the whole process a lot easier. The amaranth is also from Shop Wild Things, and while it's like a nice kind of almost off-white, I love it. It's beautiful, and theirs has a very, very good quality to the amaranth themselves. They look more realistic than a lot of the other ones that I saw at the store. And I did end up buying some just for funsies from one of the other suppliers, which I'll link down below. And while the other one might have been cheaper, this is 100% you get what you pay for situation. And the other one I mostly just use as filler because it was incomparable to what the Shop Wild Things quality is. We'll just leave it there. So you're probably wondering, why is there so much greenery in the middle just hanging down? And I get that. But let me explain what my logic is. Because some of this foliage is a little bit of a thinner leaf and doesn't necessarily have a huge amount of structure, it's meant more for like a hanging look, what I'm doing is I'm creating these centered, I don't want to say weighted spots almost, but kind of weighted spots that have this greenery in them, where I know I'm going to have a lot of flowers and like the focal flowers later. And so that way, if I have this greenery already in there, one, it'll be easier for my flowers to go into, but two, I can pull this greenery up and kind of weave it around as needed in case I need to hide any of the floral stems or anything like that. So having multiple stems already in there, I mean, if you've ever made an arrangement even in a vase before, you know it helps sometimes keep everything in its place. So just so you guys can see, here's how full some of the spaces are getting with the wires, or I don't know if they're wires, the stems. You could trim them if you want, your call. And this is the alternative amaranth that I got that I was, for the price, I'm not mad, but comparatively Shop Wildlings is nicer. Now pretty much the rest of all of the flowers and flowery-ish foliage I got came from Hobby Lobby because, 50% off, can't complain about that. And there's just a lot of variety that I could go play with and choose from. And if you don't have scissors, wire cutters, you can just spin and twist the branches off, especially of the clustered silk flowers that you get, and they'll pop off. It just is a little bit more of a workout, but if you have a small child or somebody who can help you, they will probably enjoy helping that process. So at this point, we've got the base foliage in, the big greenery, and now what we're doing is what I call the secondary foliage or the secondary greenery. So it's not necessarily the heaviest, most, I guess you would consider the filling greenery. It's the support greenery that's a little bit lighter, a little bit more delicate, a little bit more airy. So I'm putting some of that in just to kind of fill in some of the spaces and kind of soften that transition between the greenery and the actual flowers I'm using myself. So if you have that opportunity to get, a variety of different stems, I highly recommend you do that. These are not anything super fancy. They're just kind of the basic wired ones from Hobby Lobby with a little yellow at the end or a little burgundy at the end. So whatever is in your color palette, try and find something similar, but I definitely recommend trying to hold them in your hand and look at them and see how they all look together, because I think that makes a huge difference. Now, I left this part in just so you could see that I'm working on the sides as well as we go, because I want that cascading effect down either side, even if one is going to end up being ultimately a little bit longer than the other. So as you're working on the top and you're using those fillers, make sure you hit the sides too. So these are the flowers that I started with. Obviously, that was not enough for everything that we're doing in here, and I ended up having to go back and get more because I ended up making my design a little bit fuller than I originally thought I was going to, but I'm not mad about it because it is gorgeous. So whether you're getting stems like these pink ones and these kind of blush roses that have multiple stems on each one, or individual stems, there's a spot for all of them in here, because even if they're not individual stems, like those right there, those are individual stems that you just kind of fluff and put in there, but those little flowers are big clusters, and you can see like my roses are there. It's sometimes it's more cost effective to get the ones that are already a big cluster on one big stem and then just cut them off. So think, don't limit yourself to things that are single stem or multi-stem. So just, I would say focus more on the flowers and the textures and the colors when you're looking, as opposed to, is it a big grouping of flower stems all in one piece, or they're single stems. So at this point, when we're starting at the color and the flowers, I'm starting with my bigger stems first. And I'm having I think these are bougainvillea stems, or what they're supposed to be. I don't think the flowers look a little bit too big to be cherry blossom, but I like how long they are. They add a lot of color and they take up a lot of real estate. So when I'm starting with the foliage or the floral part, I want to make sure I'm adding the biggest floral first, and then you start working your way into the smallest ones. Now obviously I end up having to go back and get more flowers, but I'm starting at the bottom of my arrangement, so essentially the bottom of the arch, because that, as the guest, or in this, whoever's sitting at the table, you're going to be looking up and seeing that part really more than the straight on part. You're going to be spending more time sitting around the dinner table, kind of gazing upwards. So for me, it was really important to focus on the bottom half of the look and work my way up. So if you were using this as a buffet, like we talked about earlier, you might want to focus more on the middle portion of it and then fill in on the tops and the bottoms with maybe your cheaper flowers or ones that you don't care about as much. But whatever your focal flowers are, the larger flowers, the statement flowers, for me, the lilies were perfect. I loved them. You can see that I mixed some of the lily stems in with some of the light yellow wiry stems, so that putting them together and then sliding them into place together helps them stay even more secure and saves you a step. Makes this a little bit more efficient for everything, just so keep that in mind. Now, if you can see here, we've kind of got a zigzag with the pink going, and I'm doing that on purpose so that way your eye kind of travels throughout the whole piece without seeing a whole bunch of lilies in a row. So keeping that diversity in what your eye can kind of wander to is really important for an intriguing piece. So that's something to keep in mind, whether you're using lilies or whatever else you're using. I don't recommend putting them all in like a straight row or something like that. Try and scatter them out or zigzag, whatever you can do that makes sense for your floral. Now, I'm showing you guys just on this, especially with the bigger flowers, what I did on the other side, so you can see how they kind of balance each other out. I found it helpful to go back and forth so that way I can see, okay, about 15 inches in, I have a pink lily on this side, so maybe 25 inches in on the other side, I'll put the other pink lily. So you have a zigzag on the front, but then also going from the front to the back, the statement flowers are a little bit more scattered as well and creating that zigzag shape. So I hope you guys can see that from these efforts, and you can also see how I'm using some of the lighter stems to pull up some of that greenery and foliage from the center and pull it up, but also use it as filler to fill in some of the gaps. So with the flowers that I had at this time, the next largest ones I had were these they're not real flowers. They're not supposed to be real flowers. If you happen to have a Hobby Lobby next to you, you could tell what they are as soon as you see them. They're like a weird kind of foam that's been cut up and probably curled or put under some sort of heat. Couldn't tell you what they are, but they're really fun. They're really lightweight and they have a lot of nice movement to them, and they take up a lot of negative space with all of the little needle like blooms coming out of them. So I started with them, and then I realized, I really want this right side to be super full because we're putting the arrangement on the top. So then I was like, let me start putting in the wisteria because that also takes up a lot of space and it is a good filler as well. And I want that all, I want all of the larger pieces in before I put any of the smaller things in. So again, you're seeing some hanging wisteria here on the right, and it's just like we talked about in the middle. It's going to end up getting pulled up or tightened up a little bit as we go, but I just want to have it there so it's available for us and we can use it as filler as needed. So this is kind of an interesting moment in the design process because most of your larger focal flowers are done, and I'm working on a little bit of filler here with some wisteria, but for the most part, the next thing we're going to be approaching is the smaller flowers, or the ones that you didn't maybe get as many because you don't want to put too many in. So in this instance, those kind of like white roses with like the pop of pink subtly in them. Like I didn't get a lot of them because I didn't want to put too many of them in. So looking at those kind of weighted spots where we have the lilies or the bougainvillea, those are the anchor points that we, in my opinion, should be designing from and working our way out. So you can see how I'm focusing my efforts around the center where I have my center lilies, and then as I work my way out, I'm working around the other lilies or bougainvillea or whatever where the focal flower in that spot is. This is an arm workout, but it's really fun. And the most important thing I can say is put a couple stems up, take a few feet back and look at it, take it, put a few pieces of floral in, take a few moments to sit back and look at what you did, because taking those few extra moments to stand back and be like, oh wow, it's really off balance here, I need a little bit more pink here, I need a little bit more yellow here, is so important. So I left that in the video when I was editing, because I don't want anybody to forget that important step, because the last thing I would want for you is to get through all of this and then step back and be like, oh wow, I didn't balance this, or I didn't create enough movement here. So please remember that when you can. So at this point I've realized, yep, my dreams and the number of flowers I got are a little disproportionate, which is no problem. I'll go back and get more. So I started using the smaller florals that I have on hand just to get them all in, to finish up filling in as much of the bottom portion, which was my focus in the first place. So that way when I go back to the store, I know how much I need. And so you can see on the table, that's all I have left. And I've filled in probably close to half of the arch, but definitely have more to go. So with the first set of floral that we saw on the table, this is how far we got. So the first set of floral was probably, I would say probably like 50-ish stems, 30, 40, I don't know, maybe it wasn't 50. It was, probably with the greener, it's probably close to 50 stems. So gonna need a lot. But what I like here is you can see the S kind of curve coming through here. So I'm back, went to the store, got a whole bunch more foliage, and I was like, you know what? We're getting more than we need because I don't want to have to go back. And I was also able to find some of these, which were like miniature roses that I couldn't find before. And then these, they have them in yellow, they have them in like this kind of hot pink. I found these interesting kind of in the greenery section. They were just putting them up. They're kind of like multi-tone sprigs of grass that were green and yellow. I was like, perfect. We could always have more filler, and it's a little bit more cheaper on a per piece element, because like for this one it was like $10, but it's 50% off, so it's $5. But then we're cutting all of those stems up, so you get a lot out of it. And same thing with these yellow roses that have like a little bit of greenery in the middle. They might be like $12, but then they're 50% off, so they're $6, but then there's 8 or 9 stems on them, so it goes a long way. And then I found these, which I didn't see before, the green foliage. I'll show you in a minute. I was able to get more of the pink and greens, and then I found all of this, which I wasn't really considering earlier, but I liked the rosebuds and pink that they had, and these kind of grassy yellow pieces for filler. And then these were really cool. They have a little yellow, a little green, and they were kind of dangly picks, which I was like, great, I could use them at the top for some filler for some of the smaller flowers that I want to put up there, and it'll help keep everything in place. And then just a lot of smaller flowers that I like cutting up for filler in between the big focal ones. I got some more of the bougainvilleas, but they only had a few pieces of them left. And then of course my Easter lily I was leaving on the table just for good smells. I did end up picking up some fern and some other foliage just to see if I thought it would be good for mixing in here, and I think for some arrangements it would be. I just didn't like how it vibed with whatever I already had on hand, so I ultimately didn't end up using them, but they might be a very good option for you in your look. So just creating a kind of U shape with the handle on these greeneries, I am putting them on the top, so that way I have a nice set of texture already up there, and all I have to do is worry about filling in with any flowers and colors that I want, but the top is loosely full with just a few picks of that green. It's not really grass, I don't really know what it is, I'm not big into houseplants, but same process as before though, reusing the same order. So the bigger pieces and the bigger floral, like the bougainvillea and the lilies, that's what we're going to focus on first. So you can see I put some greenery in, and then I put the bougainvillea, and then I moved to the other end, and I was like, okay, we need a little bit more filler here. So I put some greenery in, and splitting, I liked the dangly bits on here because then I could split them to go over either side. It's not like a one side or front side or back side only thing, so that was really helpful. And so just like we do on one side, we're going to do on the other side. And I think it's especially important on this right side because that's the side that I'm building up on the top. So we want it to be nice and full. So keeping in line with the same order we did things before, the other bigger flowers, so in this case our lilies, are going to be the next things that go in. And it's definitely a workout for your arms, so make sure to take breaks if you need to. I'm glad I found those little miniature roses, because what I was able to do was take a stem of those and then a little stem / bush of these yellow flowers and fluff them, separate them, mix them together, and then I was able to put them together into that little foam block, and that helped create the base of the big floral piece on the right. And so I'm doing that again with a different combination of flowers, but similar thought process. So I did yellow roses and pink little blooms on one, and then pink roses and then yellow blooms on the other. And I'm just going to balance that out and put it on the other side of the arrangement, so that way it's not too much of the same thing. And then from here I was like, okay, I can see a little spot that needs some attention and filling in, and I thought, well, these lilies will be a great addition and it will help kind of complete that section. So sometimes if that's helpful for you, where you're like, oh, this section is almost done, just finish it if it's close, because then that's one area you don't have to worry about. So since most of the flowers for this area have been put in, it just needed some softening up and some I don't say some filler, but some lighter pieces. That's where I had these blooms with little blossoms on the end, little baby rosebuds and whatnot, and I just put a variety of them in there. Some are pink, some are yellow, some are green, just creating some negative space with that, all that kind of air that you're seeing in between the smaller lighter stems, and slightly staggering where the stems go into the foam, I think help add an extra layer of dimension as well. Now, I don't know if you can tell here because I have it on fast forward, but I have been trimming these stems that are going into the foam because I want them to be a certain shape and size. But do not discard those stems, because those wire stems are already wrapped, they're very sturdy, and you can reuse them when you make your own picks, whether it's for this or something else in the future. If you find some other silks that maybe aren't as sturdy as what you want, or you want to make your own combined picks, they make a great foundation. And I'm specifically keeping them because I know my Christmas stuff gets out of control sometimes. So the ability to make your own picks is huge and saves you so much money. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty pleased with how, at this point, the right side, which is meant to be the larger over the top, literally on the top part, it's very full. And while we're looking at it and I'm putting the finishing, we'll say lighter foliage in, I want to kind of talk about this in a commercial setting versus a residential setting. So obviously this is my home. This is my dining room. I'm a renter. I have fairly limited options with what I can adjust in the house that we're in. I can't fix that light. I can't change it. I can't shorten it. Like, it's as short as it can get. So I'm sure I'm not the only one in this situation. So you know what we're doing? We're making it work. And so this is something I can do. I can work around the LED bulbs, which hopefully if you have this as a dinner party setting, you probably won't have those lights on. You'll have candles or something under it on your table. But I said, okay, I want to make this crazy big floral arch. I know it's going to be big. I know it's going to be full. And so how do we work around having this lamp here? And so that's partially why I came up with the kind of S kind of curvy shape, where we have the left side a little bit lower with the lanterns and the right side a little bit taller with the top floral arrangement, because it's going to distract the eye a little bit. And then let's say when you're walking in and approaching it, you're probably not going to see too much of the lamp, because if you're approaching, you can see it from the right side of the screen here, the lamp that's already existing is not even going to be on your radar. back to the project at hand. These flowers are all of the extra ones that I bought the second time around that I didn't end up using. So there's quite a few that I need to return. But I mean, guys, this is awesome, especially if you're having like a little wedding party or a little engagement dinner or something at home, a baby shower. Like, this is so pretty, and I love it on my table just as is. I think it looks nice and very, very inviting. Did I go over the top with the dinner part with the linens and everything? Probably, but I do me, you do you. But I'll also probably take off the linens and enjoy it just like this, because even as it is, I think it's beautiful, especially with the backdrop and everything. It's over the top and it's crazy, but you know, we're spending so much freaking time at home these days, you might as well enjoy it. And that's what I'm doing here. And I hope you guys can figure out, even if you don't do something this big installation wise, I hope you can see some of this and be like, you know, I can make silks work. But you know, these are not your grandmother's silk flowers that sat on her dresser for 40 years. Like, these are specifically for a look that you designed in your home, just like I did in my home. And so I'm sure you're probably not going to recreate this exactly how I did, and maybe you'll only take elements of this and make a small arrangement, and that's cool. I'm just encouraging you guys to make the most of your time at home, make it a fun space that you enjoy being in and you're excited to see every morning when you wake up, because that can really change your attitude for the day. If you wake up and you get to come out and see this, you're not going to have the worst day ever, because if you are, you can work underneath it and you're going to feel better. I know I do. So, final look, awesome, beautiful. I love it. The LED candles are perfect and they look so dreamy at night. There is going to be a part 2 video that I will make sure is linked here for your convenience, but essentially going over, if you want to go one step further and take this even to a more formal level, how I make the tablescape. Guys, if you've stuck with me this long, I appreciate you so much, and I'm so thankful that you have been interested in watching how this comes together. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If this is something you're into, make sure to subscribe so that way you can see other over-the-top seasonal things that I come up with.